The question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
I was watching that press conference yesterday and just sick to my stomach. I mean, there's something that keeps you up at night. It's this case because, yeah, just the story of Kilmar himself, that he came here, he went through a whole asylum hearing. I mean, he got withholding of removal, but it's very similar. Married, kids, just picked up off the streets, and now he's in this, you know, an extermination camp, as I think the appropriate term of CCOT. But then last week when the Supreme Court decision came down and it was unanimous, I was sitting at dinner with my family and I like burst into tears and I ran outside. I mean, it makes me emotional right now just thinking about like, I got to record a video, like, hallelujah, the judiciary's got our backs. This is, you know, going to happen. And then the next morning I was thinking, you know, they kind of split hairs with the sort of effectuate versus facilitate and what means what and all of that. But I expected that the Trump administration would sort of pretend like they were facilitating, like, oh, we asked and it didn't happen. And then that would be the battle that would play out. But then yesterday in the press conference with the president of El Salvador, just the blatant, bald-faced, absolute, preposterous, laughable lie that they tried to sell the American public, that this decision was in their favor and that the court isn't trying to step in and tell them to bring him home. It is flat out lying. And that to me was like the scariest moment of it all. Because, you know, we've all been watching, like, when is the moment when the checks and balances stop and the democracy crumbles? And I think right now, actually, as we speak, there's the lower court judge is reviewing the case again. And so we'll see how that goes. My guess and my hope, my fervent hope, is that this goes back up to the Supreme Court, who's not going to, you know, take too kindly with the mischaracterization of their order by the administration, and they might come out more clearly. And then what, who knows? But and
you know, speaking of which, you know, we mentioned that Nayib Bukele traveled to the White House in DC, and here they are meeting, and this is beyond like, oh, you know, we what can we do about American citizens, which, you know, I don't know if that's the word is beyond, but this is specifically about whether or not Nayib Bukele will return Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I mean, it is wild. We are being told that these people who did not do anything, the majority of whom are not criminals, are a danger and they're lawless. When you have this actual foreigner, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but Nayib Bukele is basically going like, no, I'm not going to return any of these folks. Take a listen.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to not suggesting that I'll smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? It's always how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, you know, released into our country.
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
Pointing to the media, these are sick people. Somebody laughs and chuckles. So he's saying, Nayib Bukele is saying, what am I supposed to do? Release a terrorist? I can't smuggle a terrorist back into the U.S., let alone release him. And because the reporter's like, well, what about releasing him into El Salvador? No. And so I guess what I was what I was trying to hint at was like, this is a foreigner, an actual foreigner, basically like, I'm going to openly defy U.S. law. Like, forget the president. This is just U.S. law. And Donald Trump, the president, is like, well, they're sick. You're sane. I mean, his mind is just an old geezer, an old racist geezer, like on, you know, complete melt. But maybe just give me your reactions to the idea of calling Kilmar a terrorist, saying there's no way he could release him.
Yeah, I mean, he uses the word preposterous, and I think his statement is preposterous because the actual Supreme Court of the United States, in a unanimous decision just days ago, ordered that president sitting right next to him to facilitate the return of this man. So how could it be characterized as smuggling him into the country if the whole country is waiting for us to bring him back? And I think, just it's like stepping back, the thing to keep in mind about Kilmar and the rest of the Venezuelans, the vast majority of whom are not criminals, are not gang members, based on what their families are telling us, is that we didn't just deport these men. We rounded them up and sent them into a lifetime prison sentence in a torture camp. Like, that is a really big distinction that is unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened, or at least in any of our lifetimes, for sure. And this is going to be such a moment in, they're going to study this moment for centuries to come because of what we're doing to these men. And hopefully, here's my hope. My hope is that this goes back up, that the lower court judge orders that, more clearly that they return him. It goes back up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, absolutely not. You've mischaracterized our decision, and you may no longer deport any person until you have fixed this situation. That's what I hope the Supreme Court says clearly. And then there's a stop to all of this. That's one fork in this road. And then, of course, the other fork in the road is the courts don't speak out strongly enough, or the Trump administration just actually says, we hear what the court said and we don't care. And now we're deporting U.S. citizens. And then it's the pro-Palestine U.S. citizen activists. And then it's the immigration lawyers like me. And then the rest of us end up in these extermination camps in other countries. I mean, that's also on the table.
That could also be a possibility. I mean, right. Yeah, there is, something about the outrage. I think there has been outrage, whether it is translated, there's so many fronts people are fighting on, but there's definitely outrage right now. And, the media is at least asking the questions. But I do think, my hope is that there aren't more people who are sent. And so basically, to your point, today an immigration attorney like yourself in Boston received a self-deportation letter. Now, it seems like it was sent to her in error, but what are you hearing in your community about this kind of thing, about going after the very people who are trying to protect asylum seekers, legal immigrants, people who are here, who are trying to quite literally do the things the right way, the way we are told?
Yeah, I mean, well, in terms of the immigration legal community, what I can tell you is that a person goes into immigration law because they are mission oriented. It's not, the most profitable area of the law. So we all are here doing the work that we do because we care deeply about the clients, and we're willing to stand up and fight. And so most of the immigration lawyers I know, even though, there's an executive order out against us, and that attorney in Boston is receiving that letter, and then the guy, U.S. citizen, gets detained at the airport. Like, there are stories that they're coming after the immigration law bar. And by and large, I can tell you that the bar as a whole is banding together and figuring out how to represent their clients better and fight back and disseminate more know your rights information and stand up. But that doesn't also mean that it's super duper creepy, and that, we're watching very closely about what they're doing. And, I mean, the attack on the judiciary as a whole has been pretty shocking to see what the big law firms are doing, which ones are capitulating, which ones are fighting back, how all of that is happening. And I mean, I just people keep saying, I want to live in precedented times.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room.